Inverleigh and welcome to my channel.
Just be me.
So, I'm on my period. A good conversation opener, if you ask me. But there is a reason I'm speaking about this. Growing up, periods in my household have always been a very normal, very spoken about, very untaboo topic. The day I got my first period when I was 13 years old, my mum baked me a cake, we had my favorite dinner, I got a book, and I got a bracelet with the words beautiful woman sketched into it. But despite the celebration, I was absolutely terrified. I wanted nothing to do with it. The idea of becoming this beautiful woman that my mum had so lovingly told me that I was growing into was something I did not want to take part in. Absolutely not, a zilch, no thank you. Because this whole idea of being a beautiful woman, this beautiful human being that she's talking about, meant changes. It meant physical changes, it meant emotional changes, it meant change. And for those of you who are new here, I'm autistic, I don't like change. Overall, this whole new thing, periods, menstruation, it meant growing up. It meant bleeding on sheets, and it meant wearing uncomfortable thick pads that itched and barely did anything and was so uncomfortable and heightened my sensory issues by tenfold. It meant that everything that I had known about myself was gone. It was trashed. It was out the window, and it meant that I had to learn all of these new things about being a person who was on their period. And as a normal person, it's hard enough. When you're an autistic person on their period, it is awful. Periods as a whole have always been something that is really, really challenging to me and so many other autistic folk as well. Autism often means that periods are magnified and more intense. Sensory issues increase, pain is magnified, and studies have shown that autistic people have magnified symptoms including irregular cycles, more painful periods, and excessive bleeding. Something else about being a disabled person on the period means that resources are few and far between. We haven't got resources that tell us, here's how to cope with a period when you're disabled, here's how to cope with your period when you're autistic, when you're neurodivergent. Those resources just simply aren't there. And the thing is, we need our own resources because our minds are different than someone that is neurotypical. Our minds do need different resources, especially when there's a change that is this great. So today, let's talk about periods. Let's talk menstruating, let's talk autism, let's talk every single thing that you have always wanted to know about periods as an autistic person. As per usual, I tend to you guys to ask what you wanted to know, what questions you had, what things hadn't been answered for you. And once again, as usual, you guys came in hard with the answers. So sit with me, grab a cup of tea, grab your favorite chocolate, grab your favorite period treat, and let's talk periods. Before we get started, there is a reason I am sitting in my undies. And that is because these are my period undies. This is part of Modybody's collection, a company that I have been a buyer of for about 3 or 4 years now and have been absolutely obsessed with for the longest time. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on in the video, but I have never been able to find period products that worked for me. They either just simply didn't work, or they were uncomfortable, or they were scary, and just nothing ever worked for me until I came across period undies, specifically in the form of Modybody. Modybody have several different levels of absorbency, from light up to 24 hours, meaning that I can wear these literally month long, and I often do. They are the most comfortable undies that I have ever worn. It doesn't feel like you're wearing a period product. There's no odor, you can't feel anything. Both things that have been quite big stigmas on period undies, but you can't feel anything. It just feels like you're wearing your favorite undies that happen to be wearing them on your period. I'm doing this video in collaboration with Modybody today, and I'm sitting here wearing my Modybodies as we're talking. Anyway, let's talk periods.
Now I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP. I've reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me.
One of the most common questions that you guys have asked me is overstimulation on your period and how you manage that, and why we get overstimulated when we're on our periods. While we're on our periods, our bodies will spike in hormone levels, which is also going to increase all of our senses as well. This means that overstimulation and overwhelming sensory input is really, really common for autistic people when we're on our periods. And let's be honest, it's hard for it not to be. Period products are so unsensory, so un-autism friendly. Executive dysfunction makes it almost impossible to look after ourselves when we're on our period. The pain, odors, feelings, everything that surrounds it makes it an absolute sensory nightmare. So the question is, how do we cope with it? Finding what works best for you is the most important thing above anything. Tracking your cycles so you know where you're up to in it and when you're most likely to get your period has been an absolute lifesaver for me. I remember when I was younger, I used to see my mum doing this on a calendar. She'd like mark it off on her calendar when she was going to do it, and would have to like do math equations, which you don't have to anymore. There are so many different apps for it. I use an app for it which I've been using for a few months. The longer that you use the app, the more accurate it gets. Or if tracking apps don't work for you, which they may not if you have an irregular period, starting to understand your body and what changes when you're upcoming to your period can be really, really helpful as well. For example, for me, I know that I start to get sore, I start to get very fatigued, and I just don't feel like myself. I used to think that I was just in sensory overload, which I am, but I'm now starting to realize, it's period-based sensory overload, and I can then start to work on it from there. Once you know it's coming, you can start to prepare yourself by trying not to fill up your calendar too much on those days that you know your period is probably going to be at its worst, which for me is the first couple of days and the last couple of days. There's like a sweet spot in the middle where I'm like, this is good, but the first and last, don't talk to me. I will be in my room crying. Finding a product that works best for you is absolutely vital as well. Periods are made so much more worse when you have to use products which aren't comfortable for you. I remember when I was 14, I got my periods sporadically when I was in Bali, and I had to use one of my mum's tampons, and it was the worst. I just didn't go in the water for that entire week. I hated it. Or even if you're simply forced to use brands that you're not used to or whatever. Sometimes once you find like your key product, stick to it. I've tried everything under the sun. I've tried pads, I've tried tampons, I've tried everything, and none of it works. The only thing that works for me is period undies, and they work for me, and I'm not going to change from that. Whatever works for you, stick to it. Something that I found really helpful as well is simply just managing your expectations. You're in your period. Your hip bones are literally expanding. Your muscles are contracting. You are shedding your uterus lining. You're allowed to have a rest day. You're allowed to chill out and watch your favorite movie and have a cup of tea with a heat pack and not do anything. You owe yourself that. Go live your life, or don't live your life. Do nothing for a bit, because that's fine. Overall, the best way to manage sensory overload is know yourself, know your products, and find a routine. Another huge thing that I'm seeing from you guys is advice for burnout, or saying that you can't do hygiene practices properly because of your period and because of the burnout that it's causing you. I saw something a while ago that was saying anything that's worth doing is worth doing poorly. Now this probably refers to like exercise or like eating healthy or whatever, but you know what? I'm using it as a motto for every part of my life. If having a shower is too hard every single day, grab a new pair of undies, grab a pair of baby wipes. If changing your tampon is too hard to do frequently, don't wear a tampon and try pads or period undies instead. If changing your tampon is going to be too hard, try a maxi pad or period undies, and that way you don't have to change it so frequently. Also, manage your burnout. If you know that you're going to be in burnout, or if you currently are in burnout when you're in your period, don't go running around like a headless chicken doing absolutely everything under the sun and trying to maintain some sort of routine which you can't handle. If you're in burnout and you're struggling to care for yourself, that's your biggest expectation. Don't try and look after anyone else or anything else. And if that means doing nothing at all day, that's entirely fine. We have such a society at the moment which is telling us that we have to consistently be busy, that we have to consistently be doing stuff. And I think there's such a big taboo specifically around periods with that. But if for a couple of days and months you have to look after yourself by not doing anything and curling up and managing the fact that you have a period, that's okay. You're allowed to do that. The best way to manage burnout is to nip it in the bud before it happens. Look after yourself, practice self-care, and don't do anything which is going to cause extra burnout. Look after yourself and do things that are going to benefit you. There's a lot of questions you're asking what the best products are, and honestly the answer is the best product is whatever product works best for you. Like I said earlier, I've tried literally every single product under the sun, and the only things that I found that work for me are period undies. But after speaking to a lot of other autistic folk, a lot of them have said that the only product that they will ever use is a period cup, and others have said that they like pads or tampons, or even simply just free bleeding if it's accessible to them. Whatever the best product is the product that makes you feel the most safe and the most secure, whatever that is. Something I really want to highlight as well is that there is such a huge push towards environmental sustainability at the moment, which is brilliant. Of course we need to do that in any aspects that we can, but if you can't do that while on your period, as in if you do have to use products that are throwout, meaning that if you do have to use single-use products like pads or tampons, that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about not being environmentally sustainable when you're in your period. There is such a huge push, specifically from those that do use sustainable products like period undies or like cups, to make your period sustainable. And if you have the means to, absolutely do it. But if you don't feel bad not doing it. Your health and well-being is the top priority always. A lot of you guys are saying that you get aggravated ADHD and autism symptoms, or that you feel like you become more autistic when you're in your period, and why is that? It's super normal for our autism, our ADHD, our symptoms to become greater when we're upset, when we're tired, when we're overwhelmed. And our period is going to cause all three of those things. We struggle more to mask, our sensory issues go through the roof, and we need to work more to calm and sustain ourselves. So it's only natural for all of these symptoms to increase when we're on our periods. It's normal and it's expected. The same way that I've previously spoken about how COVID and lockdowns are making our autism symptoms worse or more noticeable, it's the same for our periods as well. Allow yourself to be autistic, allow yourself to be ADHD, allow yourself to be the neurodivergent human that you are, because fun fact, you are. If you're acting more autistic than you usually are when you're an autistic person, congratulations babe, you're autistic. You're supposed to be acting that way. And you're supposed to be acting that way when you're in a situation that is overwhelming or is distressing, and for a lot of us, our periods are like that. Do what you need to do, stim, watch your favorite movies, allow yourself to be boldly neurodivergent. Whatever that is, you do you. Okay, let's talk about executive dysfunction in periods, because this is Here's the thing. Executive dysfunction means that we can often forget to do basic things. On our period, this can mean forgetting to change our products. Not a good idea if you're wearing tampons because this can result in toxic shock syndrome. So it's something that you don't want to forget about. For those of us that do have executive functioning problems, this can be a really difficult thing to remember. But there are some things that we can do to make sure that we don't forget. To help us remember, setting timers, setting alarms, or having apps on our phones specifically for this purpose can be a lifesaver. One of my favorite apps to use to help me with my executive functioning is the app Timo. On good days, I'll simply use this app to help me remind myself of what I need to do that day. On worse days, I'll use this app to remind myself to eat and to have a shower and to go to the bathroom and to do basic self-care tasks, and it works brilliantly. When you're using this app, you can set a couple of different reminders a day to change your products, to have a shower, whatever it is. Are periods different for autistic people? This is a really interesting one, and the answer is yes and kind of inconclusive. While physically periods are mostly similar to neurotypical people, there are a lot of ways that our bodies react to them differently. Studies have shown that autistic people are more likely to have menstrual problems such as irregular cycles, unusually painful periods, and excessive bleeding. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is also 2.5 times more common in autistic people. Severe period-based acne is 4 times more likely in autistic people, and early onset puberty is 7 times more likely in autistic people as well. We're not entirely sure why this is. There's not a whole lot of studies on this, mainly because AFAB autistic folk are never spoken about, ever. We just don't exist. So we're not entirely sure what the correlation is or why it happens. We just know that it does. Tips for cramping and pain. This is a good one to talk about because your girl is cramping right now. I like to think that I have a fairly high pain tolerance. I've gotten 2 tattoos and did not even feel them. I've been kicked by a horse to the point where I had ruptured organs and internal bleeding, and I was fine and riding again the next week. But my period will be the death of me. I am in agony every single month to the point where I've been in hospital several times because the painkillers that I had at home were doing nothing. I have found a couple of things which do relieve the symptoms slightly though. One of my favorite things to use is a TENS machine. It's basically a little device that I put on the spot that's cramping, usually either here or on my back, and sends these little electric pulses to it that basically tell my brain to quit it. I've made a video all about my TENS machine, so if you guys would like to see that, you can go check that out in the link down in the bio. I found that medication is really beneficial too. I don't care for people that are like, medication doesn't do anything and you shouldn't take medication, just take a herbal remedy. Medication works, okay? Modern medication is the bomb. More modern medication. I've only found one type of medication that actually does help me, and I'll often take it a couple of days before I know my period's gonna start, just to help relieve those symptoms. And the entire time that I'm on my period, I'll just make sure that I'm on top of this medication consistently so I am not feeling the symptoms as bad as I usually would. Obviously, before taking any medication though, make sure to consult a doctor. I'm just some random chick from the internet. Do not take advice from some random chick on the internet. Taking a hot bath can really help me too. Hot baths, hot showers, all that sort of stuff can really help relieve my pain. I understand that some people may be a little bit grossed out by the idea of having a bath when they're on the period, but it's your own stuff. And you can always have a shower afterwards as well. Heat packs are bliss. I will consistently have a heat pack when I'm on my period. Exercising seems to help most people as well. I've never found it to help me. When I exercise when I'm on my period, I actually find that it aggravates and makes my symptoms worse. But if it works for you, brilliant, go for it. Otherwise, just doing light stretches and yoga. If you go onto YouTube and type in period yoga or whatever, you'll find so many stretches which can be really beneficial. And I'll also drink a lot of herbal teas, specifically those that are designed for periods. My utmost tip for surviving a period and helping with period pain though is relax. Get a tea, get your favorite drink, cuddle up in bed, and don't force yourself to do anything which you don't have the capacities to do right now. You're on your period, you don't have to take on the world, I promise you. Overall, I think the biggest things and the biggest differences between autistic people on their periods and those that aren't autistic on their periods is just the way that we are able to perceive them, and just the way that our bodies and our minds perceive them. For me personally, and for the other autistic people in my life that menstruate, sensory overload is the biggest issue and the biggest key factor and the biggest key difference between them. Overall, learning to manage your expectations, finding a routine, finding products that work for you, and building a better understanding of yourself are all the key factors to be able to create a healthy relationship with your body and your period. Periods are the absolute pits. I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm not gonna jump around and be like, I love periods, I'm so period positive, because I'm not. I hate them. They can get screwed. I hate them. But we can do things to make sure that we are looking after ourselves and looking after our bodies when we are on our period. Get a routine, find what works with you, get a period bag and bring it with you everywhere. I've had several instances where I have not brought stuff with me and it wasn't fun. One time it involved me being in a plane by myself and the stewardess calling out over the loudspeaker asking if anyone had any period products for me. I was sitting next to an old man who did not want a bar of it. He looked like he'd just seen a hunting scene from the Animal Channel. Anyway, bring stuff with you is the key message to that. And overall, look after yourself is the most important thing. You don't have to be a superhuman every single day, especially when you're in your period. Look after yourself, have a cup of tea, have your favorite chocolate, and just vibe. I hope this video answered some questions for you guys. I love making videos like this. If you guys would like to see more videos like this, if you guys would like to see more period videos, more just like big sister videos, I would love to do stuff like that. If you have any more questions about periods, let me know and we can do another one of these videos. Or if you just have any more questions, full stop, let me know and we can do another video. Thank you so much to Mighty Bodies for sponsoring this video. Make sure you guys go and check them out. I have been so obsessed with their products. They have got the cutest new range and I am just so obsessed with absolutely everything. Make sure you guys are staying kind to yourself. Make sure you guys are staying kind to other people. Make sure you guys are staying hydrated. If you guys did like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I don't mind. Do whatever makes you feel good. Do whatever makes you feel happy. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!
Just be me.